The definition of intersectionality is the interconnected nature of social categories that create systems of discrimination in society. Okay, so we're here today with the young king, Mr. Harris. How you doing, sir?
Good.
So I understand that you're a part of a couple of intersectionality groups. Do you mind telling the people what those may be?
SAP program is one. Playing football alone, puts me in that group. With SAP, I get excused from some things, mainly with PT tests and stuff like that, the APSC, now the ACFT. And then, it's not too many football guys around here, let alone, African American. So I think those are like the main three groups that I fit into.
Okay, interesting. So, with those in mind, what are some examples you may have been, or somebody you know may have been discriminated against?
So for the SAP, me being in the SAP program, the way it mainly affects me is like with like APFT tests and like the ACFC, mainly with like the run part of it, either my time is, slowed down a lot or, for the new test, I ride the bike, which is, I guess you can say is a positive. It's a little easier for me, because my weight is up a little bit. And then because of me being big, mule move is definitely going to be a challenge for me. Not just for me, but like some of my teammates in the past who have taken it. They've talked about how much it's been a challenge for them. Just because they want big guys to do, little guy things. So, yeah.
Okay, so with those same intersectionalities, like being a big SAP athlete, football player, black, have you ever felt empowered because of those?
Yeah, for sure. Like I mentioned before, SAP is kind of nice because, riding the bike, it's hard, but it's nothing like having to run a 2 mile being, 280 pounds.
Sure.
But on the flip side, like being African American, kind of puts a target on my back, considering the kind of institution that I'm at. So, but I guess you can also say like that's a positive because, it just gives me that extra bit of motivation,
For sure.
To graduate from here. Because, not many, African American black people can say that they've done this. So,
For sure.
you can look at it both ways.
Yeah.
All right, I'm here with Wyatt Fornstrom. So, do you think, or have you seen any examples of intersectionality here at West Point?
I personally have not.
Okay. One thing that I've noticed here at the academy, maybe being a slug compared to a course wide athlete, or being not as involved in different extracurricular activities, maybe puts you at a disadvantage socially because like people are like, oh, you don't do anything, or you should have all your homework done, or expect you to be more involved or whatever, when you're just simply either not interested or you're just focused on your cadet activities. You felt that at all?
I have seen that.
Okay.
That a lot of people have a stigmatism against the core squatters.
Okay.
I would not be with that stigmatism. Like everyone that thinks that, I either think they're either jealous that they're not on a team, or that they just don't have really an excuse. They just want someone to be mad at. So.
Okay, that's fair. What do you think either the academy can do or like cadets in general can do to kind of like nix that issue?
Really, just be more understanding.
Okay.
People nowadays have they have a hard time being more understanding.
Okay.
They're kind of set in their ways. So.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention to you about is you being on the opposite end of this discrimination thing for a lot of things. Like, you don't struggle as a minority because you're in the majority. But have you noticed any examples of like minorities struggling, like maybe in your company or like friends or anything?
I can't say that I've personally seen it. 'Cause I feel like yeah, I haven't really seen it in my company or anything, so.
Okay, cool. All right.
I
Thank
don't
you,
know if
Wyatt.
it's just my company, but.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. But thank you. Thank you for talking to us, Wyatt.
Yeah, no problem.
We're here with Emily Robinson today, and I wanted to ask you, what are a couple of your intersectionalities?
So I'd say the ones that I can think of off the top of my head would be being female and being in the Army are two.
Okay, and specifically here at West Point, how have you personally felt maybe discriminated against as a woman in the Army?
I would say not myself personally, but I've heard stories of other females being like discriminated against either in the field or like in physical classes. Just generally people don't think that we can perform at like a high standard, both militarily sometimes, and then also in like our DPE classes.
For sure, I've seen it too. And also, with those same intersectionalities in mind, how have you personally felt empowered or like positively affected by your intersectionality?
I would say there's definitely like very strong females here, both like physically and mentally. So it's nice to see like people overcome that and show that like it really doesn't matter what gender you are or like what your occupation is, that like everyone can be successful no matter what.
All right, I'm here with Shania Harris. We're going to be talking about intersectionality today. So, intersectionality is how multiple different social identities or political identities overlap in discrimination. So, do you think that you have any intersectionalities?
I guess my specific intersectionality would be being a African American female at the academy.
Okay. Do you think that has affected your experience here at the academy?
There's been instances where I can tell there are differences, as in being in the classroom setting, there's not many people who look like me, whether that be either African American or female. So yes, there has its pros and cons.
Have you ever experienced anything discriminatory-wise, or seen anybody experience something because of their intersectionality of being an African American female here at the academy?
Personally, would be hair standards for both African American males and females. That would be.
Could you elaborate
instance.
on that? Kind of like tell me, just like maybe a little example or cadet Y story with that.
So, say, as far as like me getting braids, I might have my hair in a bun. You might not see it from the front, how that's like in regulations, you're not allowed to see your bun from the front. But once you come to the back, you realize that my bun isn't 3 inches by 3 inches or whatever else, and that's because I have extensions in order to create these buns and whatever else, and just TAC officers not understanding that process and saying, oh, you need to go fix it. That's not like a 2-second thing to do. It takes a couple hours to do so. So that would be a specific instance.
Very good. So with that experience, do you think that experience is not even that specific experience, but all your experiences as a African American female has hurt or helped you here at the academy?
I think it's made me stronger in a sense to where I will be able to relate to people who come from maybe the same backgrounds as I do or look like me when I'm out in the real army as an officer.
Very good. Do you think that being an African American female has given you any advantages opposed to disadvantages here at the academy?
As far as advantages, not necessarily, unless we want to go into the whole demographics of like admissions, meeting quotas and all those things. But as far as actually grading and all those other things, we're all based on the same skill. So
Very good. Thank you for your time, Shania.
thank you.
Hey, so we're with Ivy today, and I know what you told me a little while ago that you're a part of a couple of little intersectionality groups. Would you mind, like, telling the people what those may be?
Okay, so I am a Afro-Latina from a low-income family, first generation military, and I am on a judo team, not an athlete recruit, and Christian, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, well, with those in mind, do you think you could tell me a couple of examples of when you might have seen somebody discriminated or how you've personally felt discriminated, especially with those different groups that you're a part of?
Most definitely. On a day-to-day battle here at West Point, you also have to take in consideration, as an African American female, there's a stereotype of me constantly having an attitude, even though like that day I may be having a great day, but if I don't constantly have a smile on my face or approach a conversation with a chipper attitude, it's assumed that I'm upset about something, and it does kind of bother me, but now that it's such a norm that I just ignore it and just explain to them that I'm not upset about today, I'm actually in a good mood, and try to make them understand that just because I'm not smiling doesn't mean I'm not happy.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think you have that stereotype at this school?
I believe, based off of society, most people in society like to paint the picture of an African American female and try to make it seem like they're always having an attitude or always upset and feels a need to have control over every situation, which is not necessarily true. Like, I'm pretty sure there's all the females here are really happy majority of the time. Sometimes we do have bad days, which is okay for us to have, but it's just deemed to every time they see us with a straight face that we're upset about something.
Well, with that in mind also, have you ever felt empowered because of your intersectionality at the school?
Yes. From the community I come from, which is predominantly a black community, we don't have a lot of cases to where African Americans are stepping out of the community and making a difference within the community. So for me, my high school, I'm the first African American female, also female, to apply and get accepted into West Point. So I now have opened doors for other generations of young African American females and also African Americans in general within my community to reach out and achieve new goals, whether it's becoming a military officer or just trying something new instead of just doing the ordinary jobs, just going to a community college and just getting a degree and doing a trade work.